Hello, Facebook. It's Reid from ReidAboutSex.com and
Allison Moon
from GirlSex101.com.
Yes, hello.
And we are at
Watch the nudity.
Intimacy Fest at the pool. Intimacy Fest just wrapped, and Allison was on writing retreat and came
Scooped him up.
Came to scoop me up. But we're hanging out in the pool now that everything's packed, and we figured we'd Facebook Live.
Yes, hello.
So we are in. Is it Agungga?
Aguanga.
Aguanga. We're in California, in Southern California.
Very southern.
So where are you today? Where are you listening in from? And where were you on writing retreat?
I was in Sky Valley, which is very close to Joshua Tree and Palm Desert. And then on my way to get you, I swung around the Salton Sea, which is a place that I've always wanted to visit and I never had before, even after living for 10 years in Southern California. Oh, wow. And so I took some extra hours to go see that extraordinary place.
Nice.
Yeah.
And is it actually a sea?
It is. So there was the San Andreas Fault, and then I believe what happened was that they were, I think when they dammed the Colorado, it disrupted the groundwater, I think. Anyway, it is a very, very highly salinated sea. For a long time it was like Salt Lake, and then it got to become more and more salinated because there was no exit point. Oh. So the salt concentrated and concentrated and concentrated, and now many of the very vibrant flora and fauna that lived there have died off because there's too much salt. And so I was walking around on many, many corpses of fish. Many, many skeletons of fish, many, many skeletons of like shells, bird skeletons. There are some fish that still live there. There's still some really good tilapia fishing apparently. Wow. But as it's more and more salinated, there is a question as to whether the sea will survive global warming, and also if it does, will anything be able to survive in it?
Wow. Wow.
It was a fascinating
There you
place.
have it. And how was your writing retreat? Like, how was the actual writing?
It was great.
Tips for writers.
Yeah, okay. So sex ed retreats and writing retreats are very different things.
They're very different. They're very different.
So I isolated myself in an airstream in the desert for 3.5 days, and it was great because I forced myself to stay inside, which turned out to be a really great thing because it was 113 degrees where I was staying, which meant staying outside was nigh impossible.
Yeah.
So even though I was in a very beautiful place, it was very uncomfortable to be outside, which forced me in front of my keyboard. So really all I did was type, took a bath, type, took a bath, over and over again all the time.
Was the bath outside?
There was a bathtub outside, and it was a private little backyard, so I was able to cool off, because it was still very hot in the Airstream, even with air conditioning. So I would write until I couldn't stand it anymore, and then when I needed to take a break, I just filled up the tub and kind of thunk, and then I went back in to write, and then in the evening time, I could fill it with hot water, and so I stargazed and thunk, and listened to music and kind of tried to get all the extra stuff out of my head. And for 3 days, it was really effective. It was a great job of cycling through writing and kind of meditation.
So it was like you got snowed in, but it was because of the heat.
Because of the heat, exactly.
Yeah. So you had to get writing done. And there was no place to hide because it was a tiny airstream. Yeah,
exactly. It was a tiny airstream, and I know myself well enough to know that if I'm in a beautiful place, I'm going to want to go hiking. I'm going to want to explore. And the fact is, choosing June was a really great time to do it because it was too. So same thing with like winter, like taking yourself someplace where it's really snowy. Get snowed in, get locked in, because this isn't about vacation. This wasn't a relaxation. This was work. This was put your ass in that chair and get those words on a page.
Okay, got it. Got it. If you all want to say hi on Facebook Live, you have to cover your boobs. And there's a lot of nudity going on here, folks.
It's facing us, yeah. We're not touching you. Are you just peeing right now? Okay, cool.
There you go. Nature.
I like holding hands. It's so cute.
So tips for me around sex education and intimacy type retreats. So we do Sex Geek Summer Camp, which is coming up at the end of July, and there's a lot of time for people to frolic, and there's a lot of time for people to learn. And how I came up with the idea for Sex Geek Summer Camp, which is a business retreat for sex educators, healers, workshop leaders, facilitators, people that kind of are under the umbrella of sex positive entrepreneur, intimacy, relationship coaching. You know, even if you're a cam girl or cam boy or whatever, like if you work with people around intimacy and relationships and sexuality, and you're looking to figure out how to do business, better and more powerfully, and also network than camp might be for you. But how camp came into being was I realized the journey I had to go through to work on money issues, learn pricing, and like just find my own self-worth around the work that I do. I had so much, like I would freak out about things, and there's naked people walking this way. I don't know
It's okay. We're facing this way.
We're facing this way. I'm just, you can totally say hi.
Yeah, just don't poke your nipples in.
Should we mermaid that?
Like, what's the frame?
It's
pretty tight.
right there.
Just don't let our crotches. Watch our crotches.
Sorry, there you go. I'm keeping us crotchless. Less crotch. Everyone say hi. How was Intimacy Fest, everyone?
Beautiful.
Okay, is that better? Is that working? I can't tell if my penis is in the shot. So I apologize, Facebook. Please don't cancel my account. But so how was Intimacy Fest?
Powerful.
Powerful?
Centering. I had a few epiphanies about life.
Okay. And what would, like, name one thing, if you can, that made the event work well for you? Because we're giving tips on, like, business retreats and tips on writing retreats.
Definitely.
So what was something for you as participants?
Space and time to play.
Space and time to play?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
So R&R is just as important as the work?
Very much, yeah. I think the specific protocol of, like, someone asking you for something and your right to say no, and the actual, like, thanking you. And that was very validating.
So around consent, like encouraging people who are super
express
huggy
yourself.
to ask for hugs and get a verbal yes before they hug anybody.
And not because I fear the hug, but just working out where you have issues around saying, like, I struggle with saying no. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm like, oh, now we're gonna hate me. Is that?
Yeah, that's great. No, that was. I mean, you can't give a bad tip. I'm just. What else? Anything else?
Tip.
Just cover my chest.
I don't have
there,
anything.
thank you.
Yeah, speaking
my
of
breasts are
tips.
covered. Speaking of tips,
Just the tips.
I have nothing to share right now.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for taking care of yourself.
Thank you for taking
You're
care of
welcome.
yourself.
All right, everyone say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. All right,
We'll let you
and
finish.
so there was that oddly felt like that. What was that shot of all the models huddling? That famous model shot of all.
Oh, it's like Sports Illustrated cover?
Yeah, like with Naomi Campbell and everything. Like they're all like, I don't know, whatever that was.
So what are the dates for Sex Geek Summer Camp this year?
So camp is in 40 days as of recording this video.
The last week of July.
It's the last week of July. It's 5 days, 4 nights. There's a bonus night. You can take the Sex Geek Summer Camp bus into camp from the Washington D.C. airports. Go to Sex Geek or go to readaboutsex.com/camp FAQ, and that'll bring you right to the FAQ page. But I was going through so much emotional growth and freaking out that I realized if we were going to help a bunch of people all go through a lot of emotional stuff around money, technology, business models, and whatnot, the idea that, like, oh my goodness, like after we teach people and they have a freak out, they need to go hug a tree. They need to go jump in a lake. And it was like, well, oh my God, like we can make it a summer camp. We can make it a goofy summer camp.
And creating downtime. Because I think there's this need to, and this is actually something that does have in common with writing retreats. We have this notion that we have to pack it all in. We have to give people their money's worth. We have to teach them everything. Same thing with writing retreats. We feel like we have to write, and if we don't keep writing the entire time, we fail. This is really hard because we have to build downtime in. And I don't care if you're an introvert or an extrovert. I don't care if you need a lot of alone time or don't. You need to have time for your brain to settle and like digest things. It's just like digestion food-wise. You need to let your brain just like deal. And so when
integration.
Integrating, exactly. So when people get confronted with money stuff or they're freaking out because they've never considered their mission statement, and now here you are teaching them about that, it is essential that there is a couple hours every day for them to digest, to process with friends, to hug a tree,
To network, to just socialize.
Anything that isn't sitting and working is really key.
And so with a camp, and again, like this applies to your own retreats. If you're running a workshop or a retreat or a seminar, at camp, part of camp is self-care. So, and I try to price camp really as cheap as I can for it to pay for itself. But like I encourage people to skip class. I encourage people to go sleep in or go for a walk in the woods. Because if I've done my job right and I'm helping everybody with their business, there's a good chance you can afford to come to camp again, and then, you know, or buy the videos or whatever, so that you can watch or attend again the pieces that you skipped the year before. Because I needed to learn and hear things several times for it to really land.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've been twice out of 3 years, and it took a year off in the middle, and I learned something new, even though it was the same material, stuff landed in different ways. I was at a different place in my career.
Or I'm teaching it differently, I could find a better way to say it.
Or somebody else is teaching the same material in a different way.
Yeah, and because it's somebody else, you hear it differently. So that's about camp, but the ideas of how do you design in time and space for people to integrate to get their needs met, like that stuff is woven into camp, even though it's a business camp for sex educators. The same principles probably apply for you teaching a, you know, intimacy couples retreat, or even like a yoga teachers retreat, or, you know, survivors of assault or something like that, you know, a retreat, or you're leading a writing group. It's, you know, how do you get savvy to design events in ways where people have time to actually be people.
And permission to.
And permission rather than just students 24/7. I know there are super learners out there who want to dive deep and stay down for 16 hours at a time, but that's not everybody's learning style. And if you're calibrating only for super learners, then all the normal people feel broken because they can't keep up with everybody. So,
and there are ways for super learners and deep divers to do that on their own. I mean, you can certainly be studying in the off time. You can do homework.
Well, you can do deep dive and stay down. Just give people time to go put on their scuba gear and just play. Like, you don't have to stay in lab in the submerged, you know, pressurized laboratory doing science work the whole time. Like where is the play as a form of self-care and giving people time to think, to write, to journal, to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else?
So yeah, I think in terms of, just to recap, I think scheduling time for processing, just like your brain needs to sleep, to dream, to clean out all the extra shit that's built up in your brain, and just like your body needs time to digest food, you need time to digest new concepts. So build that into your schedule. If you're solo, if you're in a group, if you're leading a group, build it into the schedule. Otherwise, people won't give themselves permission to do it, and then they'll be burnt out, and they'll actually feel depleted, and they won't absorb it.
And they'll learn less, and then their depletion and not accomplishing learning, they may make that mean that your events aren't good events, because their lack of progress and their hangover. Some people apply that they start to resist your events because they remember the hangover. It's like taste aversion,
right,
in a weird way, or progress, didn't make enough progress aversion. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm making up words.
So I mean, like in terms also like if you're working on a screen, if you're laptoping or taking notes on a screen, your downtime should not involve a screen. That's just serious. And also I like to think of it not involving words at all. So for instance, my first evening at the retreat, after working all day and being just totally tapped out, I filled up the tub, I got underneath the stars, got naked, smoked a little weed, turned on some music, and just let my mind drift. And really didn't try and make sense of anything. Didn't even take my journal with me. Even if great ideas came up out of that relaxation, I wasn't going to write them down.
Oh wow, that's hard for me to do that.
I know, and I think it's still really important to try.
Last night I went on the water tower thing that we were standing on. I laid out there under the stars, and I listened to everybody else having sex in their tents, which was really fun, because I was sleeping down the hill in the barn, and I realized like I didn't hear any of the night sounds. So it was really fun to just listen to everybody frolicking.
That's sweet. I listened to a lot of insects fucking.
Oh yeah, well.
A lot of bugs were fucking where I was.
Yeah,
nobody else, just bugs.
That's a cricket.
Ooh,
crickets.
But I did discover that the hose in the tub, it was really a great stress relief.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
All right, there you have it, Facebook. Hit some emoticons if you're up for Allie's idea about the hose. Oh yeah. And thank you for being a part of all these Facebook Lives. And for those of you asking how my cut is healing,
Oh, baby.
it is now being called my Harry Potter scar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cracked that wide open on the water slide. All right, let's go swimming, and then we have to drive. Thank you, everybody.
Los Angeles.
Bye. And here's the sound of one man cannonballing. Oh, it's gotta hurt. Bye, everyone.
Bye.